What's going on, everyone? I'm Sage, and jumping straight into it, now that we've started the War Within, I'm making some decisions myself personally to try to change up and do something new for the first time. And that is, I'm going to retire my Feral Druid as my main class that I play. I will still play it as an alt later down the road. I have already leveled it up to 80, but it's not going to be what I main inside the War Within. And the reason why I decided to make this decision, especially since I've been playing Feral Druid for so long, I've been playing Feral Druid since Warcraft was created, and I made the decision to play Druid because I love the aspect of Druids. I love the shape-shifting aspect of Druids themselves. I used to play a Druid back in D&D, and then I played it inside World of Warcraft once World of Warcraft became a thing. However, I've been playing it for 18 plus years at this point, and I've been maining it every single expansion. I have played my alts, and I've played some other classes during that period, but it's always been my main and my first character, my first go-to individual for everything. Inside the War Within, though, I've decided to make the adjustment and change to not main Druid. And it is nothing to do with the state of Feral Druid as of right now. The state of Feral Druid, they're actually doing phenomenal. I wouldn't say that they're doing the best out of everybody, and it also very much helps that Balanced Druid is not doing so great right now. So Balanced Druid not having a good time right now at the beginning of the War Within definitely helps the standing of Feral Druid in total, and that's always been a thing. That's always been one of the staple points of Feral Druid is that haze. But anyway, that internal struggle from Feral to Balance is something I didn't really want to struggle with this time around. As well as just melee in general always historically have always taken a backseat to ranged, right? And that's always been a dilemma across the board. Feral Druid's not the spec it was. It's not as many spending plates or anything like that anymore, and that's fine. 100%, it's a lot easier to play. It's a much better class as far as having everybody understand what works with what, how snapshotting actually works, because there's less of it now, and it's not even as essential for the snapshotting anymore to a degree. Those aren't the only reasons, though. Personally, I wanted to try something new for the first time again and play something that I don't know as well as I do Feral Druid. Because I could tell you everything about a Feral Druid. I could tell you all the abilities, what spells work with which ones, how snapshotting works, what to do, how the rotation, all that kind of stuff, right? I've been doing that on this channel specifically. My channel was created as a Feral Druid kind of guide information channel. But ultimately, I want to enjoy the game, and I've been playing it for so long that at this point, it doesn't excite me. And Hero Talents had the chance to do a little bit of that and excite me going into the War Within. But the Feral Druid talents that you obtain for the Hero Talents just aren't super exciting. They don't honestly change practically anything. Wild Stalker, you get extra vines, and you can bite those vines and blow them up. There's a little bit of synergy in those. And then Druid of the Claw, you ultimately get your massive attack that they renamed back to Ravage. And you can ravage the target, and it does like a little conal front AoE that puts bleed dots on them as well as gives you more instant damage. So it's nothing that really dramatically changes the visual abilities of Feral Druid, and it doesn't really change how you play Feral Druid ultimately at all. Most of it is kind of passive. Some of it you can like optimize here and there, but if you did the optimization to not doing the optimization, there's not a big gap there. So it's not going to be a a make or break type deal. So the hero talents themselves aren't super interesting. I would have liked them to put more into it and actually like defined it. They almost did that in a sense with Feral Druid, which is Druid in general, by the Fluid Forms talent that we have that allows you to use ability that instantly puts you inside a different form as you're doing the ability. So not only is it actively doing a damage ability, but you're shapeshifting at the same time. That's honestly what my opinion of how Druid in general should have been, where you can use all your different forms for different abilities, and you're just shape-shifting in and out of different forms depending on what you need to do. And that's something that they could have done initially with Balance and Feral, and combine them into one where in ranged or for more dots or just like they could have had it just sustained AoE with Starfall, you would go Balance, and then for more single target direct damage you would go Feral, and you get in there and you rip apart the target and you bite its head off. They don't really do that though. They slowly got into that. The closest I've actually seen us ever get to something like that was actually Guardian Druid in Shadowlands. During Mythic Plus there were times where you can shapeshift into Balance and Convoke and do a whole bunch of massive damage, and then go into car and just obliterate everything in Bear while you have Starfall and Sunfire and Moonfires going all over the place. That was probably the closest. I think to this day and age, today is actually going to be Resto Druid that does cat weaving is actually the closest to kind of that in and out form that I think that we've gotten in a long time. Resto Druid consistently probably plays that aspect of shapeshifting Druid more than all the rest of them. And I wish that that's more of what they would have taken with Druid in general, is had it to where it's more seamless to shapeshift in and out of it without having GCDs that timed you out or trying to find abilities that would work for it. So for Feral Druid, Tiger's Fury would work for you, Dash would work for you, Stampeding Roar would work for you, would shapeshift you into Bear. But anyway, it's not designed the way that I was hoping that it would go further into it. They did touch on it, but they're not going to change that drastically anytime soon. There is a potential for owl weaving and stuff like that, but they didn't place it in fluid form for like Sunfire to be part of fluid form, which would have made it a little more interesting in my opinion. But outside of that, Feral Druid is doing really good tuning wise. They're going to be reasonably competitive. They're going to do great in raid again. Feral Druid has consistently over all the years done great in raid. I've mained Feral Druid and I've definitely topped the meter. If I wasn't the first spot, I was in the top 3 of almost every single raid, mythic raid fight that I've ever done. And so Feral Druid was always well off in raids. Mythic Plus, however, even if you could do good damage, people didn't want to bring you because other individuals didn't do that great as Feral, so there's always a stigma about it that it wasn't doing super great. So ultimately I got to the point where I was just waiting for an hour and a half inside queues for as a Feral Druid to increase IO score to get in those higher keys, because I wasn't meta. Because Feral Druid doesn't really synergize with any of the other classes. It has great utility, it has the Druid utility kit, it has Mark of the Wild, but it doesn't have other things that class synergize with. And what I mean by that is when you have a Vengeance Demon Hunter that's giving Chaos Brand, a Mage that's giving Arcane Intellect to the entire caster group, that's buffing up the healer, and then you have a Shadow Priest that's giving Power Infusion to the Mage to buff up their damage, and not only their damage now, their own damage, but the mage damage. And then you have an Augmentation Evoker that scales better with those caster damage profiles than it does with other damage profiles. It's like across the board, there's synergistic values that other classes give to each other that allow you to min-max and optimize, and that's when we start seeing that meta form. Feral doesn't have anything like that. It's not giving anything to the group. You could say Innervate, but that's just utility. You could say Off Healing, but once again, that's utility. You're not giving any further output to the group other than Mark of the Wild. And that's really what I believe is hindering Feral Druid, because Feral Druid is solely dependent on its tuning at that point. You're not bringing anything that adds value to the group what somebody else can't bring or handle on their own. And that's Feral Druid has a great utility kit and does have reasonably good survivability, especially in the War Within. They've added a lot of talents that are easily accessible by Feral Druids that increase your defensiveness quite substantially. But Feral Druids always had the capability of going Bear, free cast rejuves on themselves, rejuving everybody inside the group, Heart of the Wild, and just heal the entire group. There's been several Mythic Plus done where Feral was just off healing the entire group with no healer, and they did 4 DPS and 1 tank, so on and so forth. Stuff like that is capable with Feral Druid, but it's not necessary when you're trying to go as fast as you can and get as much output as humanly possible. Because there's somebody that can always bring something a little bit better, more synergistic, more defensive value than what the Feral Druid kit can bring. Even if they themselves can do well, they're not helping the group do well. And that's a problem that we really have in general. Not saying that all of the things I'm talking about definitely got better in the War Within for Feral Druid. Feral Druid's going to do great in the War Within. I don't believe they've reached that meta category just yet, but they're going to do good. Especially if you have somebody that plays it well. They're going to do great. The damage, the burst, all of that stuff is there for Feral Druid. So by all means, me choosing to not play Feral as my main this time around isn't because of the state of Feral. For me, it's I want something exciting, something I don't know that much, something that's aesthetically pleasing to me, more so than what I've been looking at for the last 18 years. So that's my decision, and ultimately my decision is going to be I'm going to play Mage. That seems like the safest option as far as trying to get into more of a meta type category and look at playing in that field of content with a little less barrier for entry, because mages are doing very, very well. I've loved the aesthetic of Arcane Mage, and Arcane Mage is just tuned massively right now. Good chance Arcane Mage does get hit with a nerf at some point because of the amount of bursts and stuff that they can do, but the abilities look appealing. The hero talents that they have, Sun Fury and Spellslinger, both add things that visually are nice to look at and feel good to press. Every button on Arcane feels good to press unless you're pressing Arcane Blast with no charges. That feels horrible. Other than that, everything else looks really cool. It feels cool to press, and you're doing a lot of damage. The setup, the burn, the burst, the resetting your cooldowns, all of that feels really great, and it feels beneficial to play, and it's something that I haven't really had as far as an excitement level in a long time, because all the stuff that I've been doing is stuff that I've been doing for, you know, the past 2 decades almost. So I'm gonna play mage. I do have my Frost Death Knight level to 80 as well, and then I have my Druid level to 80. I'm gonna have my Warlock level to 80 as well, and ultimately this time around I'm gonna try to be more of a multi-class type player instead of just being that one trick with the Feral Druid or Druid in general, and see how it goes. So I know that this channel has always been focused about Feral Druid and the content towards Feral Druid, but I'm gonna start playing some other specs. Hope you guys all stay tuned and enjoy the content that is going to start coming out. And if you have any questions, or if you agree with me, or hey, maybe you're making the same decision I am and you're switching off Feral Druid finally, and you finally buckle down to that person that keeps telling you, why don't you just play Rogue, because Rogue is pretty much Feral Druid, it's the same stuff, and you're finally making that swap over to what everybody's been telling you for years to go play. Let me know how you guys feel about it in the comments below. Let me know what you guys are deciding to main this time around. If you are sticking with Feral Druid and you're like, man, this is just going to be the most meta thing ever, let me know what you think about it. Let me know why you think that is. And man, I hope that it is for you. Feral needs to have its heyday. I know in Mildrassil we were brought to World first. We were also doing very well in raid tuning in general. But even during that season, we weren't meta inside Mythic Plus, and we weren't meta inside PvP either. Even though PvP, Feral has had more heyday in PvP than it has anywhere else almost. Beast Cleave has been a very real thing, several different tiers. But anyway, that's enough for me. I hope you guys enjoy the content and look forward to what's coming up next. We are doing rebranding. I've rebranded everything from Sage Shifter. Now my channel and my Twitch and all that stuff, my handle is Zsage TV now. Still going with Sage, so just stay tuned for that and the content that I have coming forward. Past that, I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.